Okay, I think it's recording.
Yeah, I read the first.
How do you shrink that?
I don't want to take Jonah with you.
Okay, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank y'all for coming out to come see the presentation we have today. I'm Jonah Fitzgerald. I'm the ACM publicist. I'll be showing y'all how to dual boot with Windows and Linux. So real quick, what is dual booting? Well, normally we have just one operating system on a computer. That's pretty normal. When you buy a laptop, you have Windows. Some of y'all will buy a MacBook that has Mac OS. Even with phones, like my phone, it's an iPhone. It has iOS on it. So it's not normal to have more than one operating system. But in case you wanted to have more than one operating system on it, you would dual boot, right? So usually what happens is both operating systems are stored on the same hard drive. And normally one operating system is booted at a time. It doesn't make sense for them to share resources and things like that. For this particular demo, we're going to be showing off Windows 10 and Ubuntu. But you can do this with lots of other operating systems. A lot of people will do it with some version of Windows, like Windows 10 and Windows 11, or some other version of Linux. So real quick, what is Linux? It's a kind of operating system. The definition of it is pretty broad. It's any operating system with a Linux kernel. You don't really need to know what that means right now. Just know that it's a very broad definition. So there's lots of different Linux distributions, as we call them. It's very popular for businesses and different servers. So as opposed to running Windows 10 on something you'd use just to check your emails or watch YouTube videos, businesses will use Linux to run email servers and web servers and things like that. And that's just a list of some of my favorite distributions that you can check out another time. Before we get into showing off anything, or you get into actually doing this on your own computer, make sure you do your research. I have a good story about that. The first time I installed Linux on not this laptop, but my old one, it literally took me 3 days, waking up at 8 a.m., going to sleep at 10 p.m. just to troubleshoot it. I did not do my research, so I did a lot of struggle. Make sure you know if your hardware is compatible with that version of Linux. Make sure you know the different what if scenarios. So like, what if you boot in and you just get a black screen? Or what if you boot in and all of a sudden you can't later boot back into Windows? One of the best things you could do before doing any of this is make a backup. What I'm going to show you is done in something called a virtual machine. I'll get into that in a little bit. But with a laptop, you want to make sure you take a backup, because if you destroy anything, delete some files, it'll be real difficult to get that stuff back if you accidentally destroy anything. So what are we doing? First, we're going to take a look at our Windows 10 system, in this case, a virtual machine, and get it set up for dual booting. A virtual machine is just a simulation of a computer on your computer. From the perspective of the virtual machine, it has no understanding that it's not actually a real computer. It makes it real useful for something like installing a test operating system, or for our purposes, just in trying to do a dual boot. We're going to be modifying the hard drive in particular. So don't show that when we actually get into it. Then after that, once we prepare our system, in this case a virtual machine, for dual booting, what we're going to use is a bootable USB to boot. You can't see it from that perspective, but I don't know if you can see the USB I have plugged in. So earlier I said normally you have an operating system on a hard drive. And what happens is your computer, when you turn it on, it'll find the operating system and then put it into your system's memory so it can start doing stuff. Normally, you would do it on a hard drive, something large like a 1 terabyte disk drive. But if you have a big enough USB drive, you could also use that to store an operating system, because it's pretty much the same thing. It's just a little tiny hard drive. And I'm going to show you how to actually boot into it. And then one of the problems with installing is that you kind of just got to hope everything works out. Otherwise, you got to start doing a bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and get into the demo. So this is a virtual machine. Again, it simulates a computer on your computer, makes it really useful for what we're doing. The first thing you're going to want to do when you're dual booting from Windows, so you only have Windows 10, for example, on your hard drive, you're going to want to make space for the new operating system. So on Windows 10, I don't know if it's the same way on Windows 11, but you just search up disk, and one of the options that should come up is create and format hard disk partitions. Let's pull that up. And so this will look a little intimidating at first, if we'll ever load. But you don't need to know what all of it means right now. I'll show you kind of the things you need to look for. If y'all can see my mouse, this disk 0 right here is the hard drive. And it's divided into things called partitions with file systems. So real quick, just an overview of what that means. So normally, when you get a brand new hard drive, you get this a blank thing. It doesn't have anything on it. So what we need to do first is kind of start to understand the hard drive is partition. And that's really just helping the operating system and the computer kind of start to keep track of stuff. From there, we put a file system, something like those are just examples of file systems. File systems are kind of like the way you take notes in class, right? Everyone takes notes a little differently, and so that's why we have different file systems on different partitions. So NTFS, for example, is a way Windows like to take its notes on where files are at. But we have other file systems like exe4. That's how Linux likes to keep track of this file system. It's one reason why we pulled up this scary looking application is because we're going to have to actually make space for two different file systems, so with different operating systems to keep track of files in different ways. So this is an example of a place where scary stuff could happen if you're not careful, because what I'm going to do is hover my mouse where it says Windows C. You may recognize that C. That kind of represents Windows's general understanding of where you want to put your files. I'm going to right click on it. And then I'm going to go to shrink volume. So right now, this hard drive is completely full. It doesn't have any more room for another partition and then another file system. So we're going to go ahead and make some space for it. I'm just going to use an arbitrary number that I tested before and know works, but let's see. Let's try that. Let's try shrinking that. That's big enough. To know for sure how much space you can actually shrink, you could open up your file explorer and then go to this PC and then take a look at your C drive. You do not want to shrink it more than how much space you've actually used, because if you do, then all of a sudden you're deleting files that you have. You also don't want to shrink it to just the bare minimum, because then your operating system won't have any room to take any additional notes, and then you'll start crashing and then losing files. So just make sure you kind of calculate things appropriately. And that's all we need to do on the Windows side, actually. We've created a space for Linux to kind of start taking notes. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn off the virtual machine. In real life, what you would do is you just turn off your computer. Then you would plug in your bootable USB. So like I said, this has an operating system on it, ready to boot, in the same way that an operating system is installed on our hard drive. I won't go over how to do this here because it usually takes a while, but it's usually very easy. You just look up how to create a bootable USB, and then you just use a tool to do that. So then I'm going to turn this back on. Cool. I don't know if y'all could hear me just rapidly hitting a key on my keyboard. So what happened is I turned off my computer, and then in order to boot into my bootable USB, so load up the operating system I have on that USB, I had to choose a very specific key to load into my BIOS. So the BIOS is a little like, well, it's sort of the operating system installed on your motherboard. It has a very few things that it does, and one of it is to find your operating system. So in my case, I hit F2. I spammed the heck out of F2, and that let me boot into my BIOS. And so now I can choose which operating system I want to load into, right? Can y'all can't even see that very well. I'm sorry. The resolution doesn't want to increase with the BIOS. Okay. So if I went to boot manager, that'll let me choose what I want to boot into. You can see at the top, there's one called Windows Boot Manager. So that's kind of the way we load up Windows. But I'm going to scroll down to this one, USB disk 2.0. That is my USB. It's a little easy to tell just because it says USB. So it sometimes can be a little difficult to tell which is the one you want to boot from. Just try the best you can. At worst, you just have to turn off your computer and try again. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit enter. Cool. So now I'm in Ubuntu. So while it takes a second to load, am I going too fast? Does anyone have any questions? Y'all having fun?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. So yeah, this moment usually takes a little while. This is the first time Ubuntu is starting on this computer, so it's just kind of deciding what it wants to do, how it needs to figure things out. I recommend trying Ubuntu if you want to try this at home. It works really well, pretty easy to use. And then Anki, he likes Ubuntu, so if you want to bother Anki more, install Ubuntu. There it is. So Ubuntu, when you boot into it for the first time using a USB, it lets you try it, but I'm just going to go ahead and start installing. I'm going to choose English because I speak English and type English. Why are you laughing? So here, a lot of distributions will let you choose kind of how much you want to install at first. That'll help you determine how long it takes during installation versus how long it takes after installation. Just to make it as quick as possible to install, I'm going to do minimal install, and I'm not going to do any updates. This is going to take a moment. Let's see. How's your birthday going, Jacob?
Great.
Great. How old are you?
Oh,
Not older than me, I don't hope.
that's pretty old.
Hey, real quick question. How many are freshmen? Cool, cool. Uh, so this is another part of the installation that could be a little scary. This is kind of where going back to this drawing over here. Right now, we have a blank space. And we're going to direct Ubuntu to put its file system there, just like that. And if you're not careful, you could do something like this on accident, and that was done. I don't know what this does until in Ubuntu alongside Windows Boot Manager. So let's do the scarier option to do something else. This is analogous to that one application I showed y'all on Windows for modifying your hard drive. It's a little harder to read. Bye, Jacob. But there's a couple of keywords you should look for. So if I scroll down a little bit and click here, that says Windows Boot Manager. Again, that's just kind of how we let the computer decide, hey, how do I want to load Windows on to my computer and like start it up? Let me double click on that real quick. Okay, so it looks like Ubuntu kind of automatically decided that that partition is an EFI system partition. What that basically means is it's going to also use that Windows boot manager to decide how it wants to boot up, which is good because that'll help us boot up both Windows and Linux at the same time. And then the last thing we really want to do is double click where it says free space. Guess what? That's where we created our free space at. Primary partition, yeah, beginning of the space. Again, the example file system for Ubuntu, I don't know if you can see it, but it says ext4. There's lots of different file systems, but this is the most common for Linux. And then we're going to choose a mount point. So the mount point, where did I do this? Okay, so right here is our Windows file system. And you remember how I showed you all how to take a look at your file store, how to see what your hard drive space is like? How it calls that C drive? Well, in Linux, the equivalent to the C drive on an ext4 file system is /. So it does pretty much the same thing. It's just the operating system's comprehensive view of that division of the partition. So while Windows calls it the C drive, Linux will call it /. So mount point /. Cool. Well, I think, well, let me let the little scroll wheel scroll. Free space. Cool. Orange. Install now. Yep. That's just a disclaimer. You might be deleting stuff that you don't want to delete. But we know what we're doing because we're smart people and I'm showing y'all what to do. So y'all know not to delete your stuff. Time zone. Okay, this is where we decide our user account information. So my name is Jonah. My username is Jonah. My password is super secure and you'd never guess it. It's not, no, it's not Jonah. Okay, this is the other part of the installation that takes a while. There's nothing I can really do about this. How do y'all feel about this presentation so far? Y'all like it? Cool.
John, why is there a jellyfish?
Why is there a jellyfish? That's just Ubuntu's mascot. Like Windows is the window. Yeah. You know the name of the jellyfish too?
That it's in the install. Like it depends on which version. If you have like a 20, it's like gonna be really good for like 22, and then if it's like 16 or
Something. Jammy the jellyfish. Actually, now that I think about it, let's go back to this presentation real quick. So October 16th and October 23rd through October 23rd, a group called Major League Hackers, they're going to be hosting a monthly week-long event called Global Hack Week. A hackathon is not like a hacking competition. It's more of a programming competition. It's, can you build something really quickly? How do you build something? How do you kind of like do the thing? But when we post these slides, you're free to come take a look at this, follow this link, and sign up for it. They have cool presentations, cool workshops. They have little challenges you can try out, challenges that are not easy, but definitely would look good on a resume, for example. So they do a lot of cool stuff. So check it out if you get the chance. Great, still not done. Is there anything y'all are interested in learning about? No?
Can you make your own file?
Can you make your own file system? No. I mean, you can, but it's difficult.
Docker container.
Docker containers, you're talking to the right guy. Yeah, I gave a couple presentations on it last year, so we'll definitely take a look at that. What's that?
Then that's Docker.
Thank you, Clay. Is anyone in here not from Louisiana? Cool. Where are you from?
Texas.
Mississippi. Where are you from? Texas? See, I tell people there's two kinds of people from Louisiana. There's people from Texas that think Texas is the best state in the nation.
It is.
And then there's people from Louisiana that also think Texas is the best state in the nation.
Where are you from?
Louisiana.
Texas.
What's that?
Opinions on Texas?
Okay. Oh, my bad.
What do you call Louisiana?
What do I call Louisiana? Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Did I hear a Louisiana from over the corner?
Louisiana.
Ooh, look, it's almost finished.
The winter ad.
The what?
I said the winter ad. We don't lose.
Something like that. How are y'all's classes so far?
Terrible. How did you make your way? Dr. Cherry developed my first time.
I believe that.
I was one of the friends.
Oh, cool, it's doing something.
And it'd be like.
Installing the system. What I'm showing off on my computer right now is one called Fedora. One called Fedora. Fedora. Well, I think it's cool that you can do that. That's called ASCII Aquarium. I'll show y'all how to do it once we actually install Ubuntu. But yeah, so that's well on Ubuntu it's a little different.
I see why you're mad.
It was on my favorite list. I like Parrot more because it's cool. I like Parrot more than I like him Fitzgerald.
I think the line went backwards.
That's kind of crazy.
No, what's some of the things you can do with
What's some of the things you can do with Ubuntu? So a lot of applications don't like to run on Linux, but do like to run on Windows, and then vice versa is true. So if you wanted to install Linux because you like it more, or run a specific application, you could dual boot, so you wouldn't have to do it all in virtual machine. Virtual machine could be a little slow, it can take up resources on your computer, so you might want to dual boot. For example, I like to use Linux more than Windows. But if I want the fallback mechanism to just go back to Windows in case I need Microsoft Teams or something for a Teams call, I can just boot into Windows real quick, use Teams, and then jump right back into it.
Don't like to use the program to show it on their computer. So you can't like put it in like temporary.
Yeah,
So don't just say like you can just like switch over.
I mean, it is easy to do. You just save your work like you should be doing, then turn it off and do it another option. That's pretty. What was that? That's what I'm saying, it's pretty cool. It gives you a lot of cool experience. I do stuff like this on the job regularly. They're really good with my Linux skills and my operating system skills, my system skills, just because I've done stuff like this. Like my story about how it took me 3 days to install it for the first time on my computer. Like the day setup is like, that's an example of me that I see that over there. But yeah, like it's a good example of something that employers would like to hear. It gives you some great experiences for the future. Stories in case you give a presentation on dual booting Linux and your first dual boot fails. Yeah. Take it away, Clay.
Yeah, so we're
Thank you.
back to you,
Okay.
John. That's an Emmy award right there.
Yeah. I forgot to go over what's going on here. Y'all cannot listen to this going on. So it's telling me a bunch of stuff. What it's doing is it's taking files that was on the USB and putting it on the hard drive. What it's doing now is it's downloading files from the internet and then putting it on the drive. But it's really just putting the files on the hard drive. Now that it has a file system and a partition to work with, now it knows how to start thinking about files. Yeah.
What's your favorite way to communicate between
Boots.
yeah, like from your Linux VM that you have up and then your Windows VM that you had next.
Oh, like so between two VMs or between two dual boots? Or like a dual boot? It's what's different because on virtual machines, you might not operate a little differently. So if I was dual booting, I would use file services like Google Drive to store any files I need. There's really no reason you shouldn't be using something like Google Drive to back up the file. Making people easy to use something like Google. But communicating between VMs is a little trickier, and you could do that.
Download this or
Yeah, you could download it for it.
sometimes the drag and drop doesn't always work. No.
Is there anything else ACM could do for y'all that y'all kind of want to see? Like, we give a lot of presentations that we think is cool. I mean, I think this is cool and this is super useful, but I might be a little biased. Is there anything else you want to see? See a laptop exploding? Connor, you can get on that. An old one? Okay, well, let's take it up a notch. Let's just blow up. Let's get through the presentation first. So it's done installing. It says to restart now, but it doesn't work as well. Watch, I'll show y'all. Let's see, power off. Okay, so in real life, you would just turn off your computer. What I'm gonna do is take the USB out. Okay, so it's out. Let me make sure it's the system's off. It doesn't matter, bro.
But you're gonna like ruin the files on the full.
It's not gonna do anything, dude. Okay, so let's boot. Okay, let me pause real quick. Pause. Okay, so I just turned on the virtual machine. In real life, it would be a computer. You see something a little different from what you would normally see when you boot into Windows. Normally, when you boot into Windows, it's like a little circle and it's like. But in this instance, it's something a lot nastier. But at the top, it's kind of hard to see. You see the word Ubuntu, and then highlighted right now, you see Windows Boot Manager. This screen is really just letting you choose which operating system you want to boot into. So when you turn your computer on, you can go all the way to the top, hit enter on Ubuntu, or scroll down to the third one, hit enter on Windows Boot Manager, and then all of a sudden you'll be switching between your operating systems. So let's go to Ubuntu, because I ran through this demo a few times, and I was like, there was a problem, which you will probably run into when you install Linux for the first time on a machine, maybe a virtual machine just like this, or maybe your own hardware. But when I load into it, the screen freezes, nothing happens. So if you ever have a problem like this, this is a good example of when you need to do your research. When I did this for the first time on my hardware, I didn't have any internet access, and all of a sudden now I didn't have, well, I could go back to Windows, but that's so cumbersome. So it made it very difficult to troubleshoot. I'm going to show you this particular fix, which you'll probably run into in your own time. Let's restart. It's going to let me choose Ubuntu again, and I'm gonna hit E. Okay. So the cool thing about this screen is it lets you choose how your operating system boots up as well. So like, how does Ubuntu boot up? You don't really know what any of this means because I don't really know what any of this means either. For this particular fix, we're gonna go all the way down to the line that says Linux, scroll all the way to the right. It is I think a kind of bash. I'm gonna replace the word splash with 3. You don't need to remember this. I found this within like 10 seconds of Google searching. Okay, so now we're in Linux. Hooray. It looks kind of nasty, but we're in Linux. That's progress. So let's test our login real quick. So my name's Jonah. My password is not Jonah. Cool. What? Nothing. You don't need to worry about it. So again, this is a fix I found online, readily available. I just typed in, Ubuntu the screen freezes when I turn it on. Nano, Okay, so what you just saw was me typing commands into a terminal. So it's kind of like the command prompt in Windows. So sometimes I don't know if y'all see that little window like flash. Yeah, that's a command prompt. It lets you issue commands to the operating system. What we're seeing now is just a command prompt, like not even like a way to get to a file browser or like a web browser. The simple fix for this problem so that my screen doesn't freeze when I turn it on is I uncomment this line, save it, and then I'm gonna go ahead and reboot. You don't actually need the command. You can just turn it off. I just like the command because it's fun. Cool, Ubuntu. That's a good sign. Boom, we're in. So you saw how kind of quick it was for me to fix that? Took me 3 days my first try. So again, do your research. Password, not Jonah. It's Jonah. Okay, my password is Jonah. See for now. Noticing that. So this is the end of the presentation. By now, your computer is successfully dual booted. You have a hard drive kind of like the one that's on the board. Now you can go back to Windows if you want to. You can stay with Linux if you want to. But I'm gonna show y'all how to get the this up and running. Let's see. Let's pull up a terminal. Do snap install ASCII Quarium. My password. Was that?
You have to use Snap.
You got to use Snap for this one. Snap is a way to, it's a different kind of package manager. It's outside of the scope of this course, but this is a package manager. Let's try it. Okay, we're done. The fishes? Oh, I don't know. I'm not that smart. Okay, so that's it. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Huh? Oh, yep. Where'd it go? They already get them out. Okay.
But you can mention if you want.
No. Right. I'm gonna stick around for a little bit. If y'all have any questions, feel free to talk to us about anything. Otherwise, see y'all at the next meeting for sure, right? Y'all coming to the next meeting. I'm going to stop recording.